Hello, Bendy friends. Today we're going to be talking about getting flat splits. You're someone who's been working on your front splits for a while and are really kind of just so close to flat, but are struggling to close those last couple of inches between your hips and the floor. There's a couple of things we can do. First off, if you look like the person stretching that video, for the love of God, use blocks under your hands. The more you lean forwards, the less you're stretching that back leg. But make sure your torso is lifted when you're working for your splits. That said, there's two main things I like doing with students when you're getting really close to getting your flat splits that can often help close those last couple of inches. Thing number one is really working on the hip flexor flexibility in the back leg. In this video, I'll show you two of my favorite exercises for that help both strengthen and stretch those pesky hip flexors. And tip number two is starting to work on your oversplits. So oversplits are not just for folks who already have flat splits. They can be helpful for folks who are getting really close to the ground to help make them just a little bit more challenging so that when we remove the blocks from our oversplits, regular splits are a little bit more comfortable. So I'll show you how to do that as well.
One of my favorite hip flexor drills are knee taps and a lunge with a block under our back foot. So what that's going to look like, I'm going to set myself up with a low lunge with a yoga block or a foam roller under the top of my back foot, front foot forwards, knee bent so that knee is right on top of the ankle. For this exercise, if you want to make it a little easier, you can have your hands reaching forwards on each side of the front foot. But if you really want to get at those hip flexors, I'd encourage you to keep your torso lifted, either with your hands on your thigh, or you can have them on blocks on either side of your hips. For balance, I'm just gonna have a hand on a wall because I happen to be right here. So for this exercise, I'm gonna start pushing the top of that back foot into the block, trying to lift my knee, straightening that leg. You're gonna feel a squeeze in those quads. I also want you to squeeze the glutes on that side, trying to push those hips nice and low. Feel a stretch through the front of the hip of that leg that's in back. From here, bring that knee down just to barely kiss the ground. Don't sink all of your weight into that knee. We're just gonna tap the ground, straighten that leg. Bend the knee, straighten, bend, straighten. Do this 8 to 10 times on one leg and switch legs. The last drill that our hip flexors that I'll show is something that we do lying down. I love this drill so much, I do it virtually every splits class that I teach. So lying on our back, we're gonna take a yoga block, sliding it under our hips. So not the squishiest part of your butt, but the bony part of your hips. So that just sitting here feels really nice. We're gonna extend that left leg nice and long. This is gonna be the side that I'm stretching out those hip flexors for. My right leg, I'm gonna bend that knee, pull it in as much as humanly possible. I want you to try to bring that thigh all the way to your belly, knee towards your shoulder. What we're doing is starting to tuck our pelvis as we pull this right leg in. So our tailbone's starting to angle towards the ceiling. You'll notice my left leg is levitating away from the floor. That's great, that's where we want it. From here, I'm gonna keep pulling that right leg in. Make sure that left leg stays straight. So you're gonna have to squeeze those quads, point those toes, keeping that leg straight. Start reaching that left heel towards the floor. The whole side of your back leg's pressing down, but don't let that knee bend. I want you to keep shooting energy out of those toes. So you're gonna feel a squeeze in your glutes. The quads have to squeeze to keep that leg straight. We're pushing that heel down enough that you're starting to feel a stretch through the front of that hip. Don't let that right leg fall away. Keep pulling it in while that left leg is reaching down. You're gonna press that left leg down constantly for 10 seconds. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then you can relax. Shake it out. Do that 2 more times with your left leg extended, then you can do the same thing on your right leg. If you want an extra challenge in this exercise, instead of keeping this right knee bent, you can partially straighten it for a little bit of a hamstring stretch in that leg, or you can totally straighten that leg so that you're getting a hamstring stretch while you're also stretching those hip flexors. So what that would look like is pulling that right leg in with the leg a little straight or all the way straight. You're gonna keep pulling it in as much as possible while that left leg stays straight, pressing that heel towards the ground, pushing it down for 10 seconds. The other thing I find helpful working with students who's starting to get really close to their flat splits is to start working on oversplits. So oversplits, we can have a block under the front leg, under the back leg, or both. So what that would look like, personally, I find a block under the back leg harder, so I like to do that one first. I'm gonna take a yoga block, put it under the top of that back foot, just like when we were doing those lunging knee taps. My front leg I'm gonna take forwards. You'll likely still want blocks for your hands because we want to still make sure our torso is really lifted here and that we're not forward folding over that leg. And from here, we'll slide our front foot as far forwards as it goes, trying to find our split. And right now, there's really no difference between this and our no block split. But to make it more challenging and to engage those muscles, I'm going to take the top of this back foot, push it into the block, let that knee lift. And then from here, keeping that leg straight, I'm gonna see how low can I let gravity sink my hips down. We're gonna hold for 20 to 30 seconds. For the front leg, I'm gonna have my block in front. If you've done oversplits before, you're welcome to just throw your heel on that block. If you're less familiar with oversplits, I really encourage students to have the block closer to your knee on your calf, because this is gonna put less pressure on your knee joint, even if it does technically make this a little bit harder. So starting with that block somewhere under that front leg, we're gonna tuck our back toes, slide that back leg as far back as it goes, double check that both hip bones are pointing forwards, and hold here, breathe in for 20 to 30 seconds. As this gets more comfortable, you can start moving this front block farther away from your knee towards your front heel. Then it gets more important to make sure you're keeping a tiny bend in this knee yourself. So instead of letting the whole underside of your knee collapse to the floor, I want you to try to bend it ever so slightly. So this is gonna feel like a slight squeeze in those hamstrings. So what that would look like with that heel under your front knee is teeny lift in that knee as we're trying to drop those hips down. What we want to avoid is relaxing completely, letting that knee hyperextend. That's something that is good for long term. So little bend in that knee as you're holding your front leg over split. Once you've done 30 seconds with your block under your back leg, 30 seconds with that block under your front leg, go ahead, try a regular split again. See how it feels. Maybe you've gotten just a teeny bit closer to the ground. Maybe you're all the way on the ground.